Hey there! Welcome to Dark Psychology World channel. Have you ever wondered about your most addictive habits? Drugs, gambling, sex, gaming, food, mobile phones, or even watching short videos, these behaviors can bring us short-term pleasure. But what happens when this fleeting pleasure turns into a dependency? Do you find yourself reaching for your phone within 30 minutes of waking up? Or needing a soda or drink with every meal? Or feeling compelled to complete certain tasks in a game every day? These are habits you might be doing every day without realizing it. If you were asked to stop, could you? With the rapid changes in science, technology, society, and culture, addiction is no longer limited to stereotypical substances like drugs or gambling. If you've ever lost control over any of the behaviors mentioned above, you might be addicted. So today, let's talk about addiction. Are you really addicted? What are the mechanisms behind addiction? And what can you do if you're addicted? Addiction refers to a repetitive compulsive behavior. It's when you feel like you have to do something, even if you know it will have a negative impact. You can't stop doing it and develop a dependence on it. This addiction can be physical, like drugs, alcohol, cigarettes, caffeine, processed foods, etc., or behavioral, like swiping a mobile phone, playing games, having sex, shopping, etc. Usually when you start these behaviors, they're hard to stop. When you're not performing this behavior, you might feel uncomfortable, irritable, and unable to concentrate. In severe cases, it may even cause headaches, nausea, and other physiological reactions. So, what's the mechanism behind this addiction? It's about a system in the brain called the reward system. This system motivates behaviors beneficial to survival by influencing people's happiness and joy through the action of a neurotransmitter called dopamine. For example, when people are eating, dopamine is released in the brain as a reward, telling us that eating makes us happy and encouraging us to do it again. Normally, dopamine automatically regulates and balances itself in the body, preventing overaddiction. However, addiction is a problem with the reward system. It gives constant rewards when you do something, making your brain constantly want this feeling, so you can't stop doing it. To understand what's wrong with the reward system, we can learn about it from the process of addiction. Addiction can basically be divided into 3 stages. First, the stage of abuse and intoxication. When a person comes into contact with a certain substance, an area in the center of the brain called the ventral tegmental area, VTA, will be activated. The VTA is one of the main areas that produces dopamine. When dopamine is released, they go to different areas of the brain, activating different behavioral responses. First, we will go to an area called the nucleus accumbens. The nucleus accumbens is often called the pleasure center of the brain. Its main functions are related to emotion and memory. When dopamine passes through the nucleus accumbens, people will feel happy and energetic. Next is the amygdala, the center of emotional learning and emotional memory, which structures what behaviors it will learn to make us happy. Also, we learn what things make us anxious and fearful, which then goes to the prefrontal cortex. The prefrontal cortex is responsible for judgment, decision-making, and other functions. It helps us decide whether a behavior is good or bad. The striatum, which is relevant to human automatic behavior and the formation of habits, and the hippocampus, which is responsible for short-term and long-term memory areas, also play a role. They help us remember this behavior. After dopamine activates these areas, the brain responds to this series of learning and actions. For example, when a person is exposed to drugs, dopamine is released in the VTA region of the brain. Dopamine activates the nucleus accumbens, making people feel happy and joyful. Then this happy feeling, because it feels good, will be determined as good by the prefrontal cortex, like a judicial institution inside the brain. Since the judiciary has judged that it is good, then we can ask for more. When we want more, dopamine is released again and again, making people feel constantly happy and joyful. This makes you want to get involved again. Repeatedly, the hippocampus remembers the behavior and the striatum encodes the behavior as a habit. This is the basis of addiction. However, under normal circumstances, dopamine is not endlessly stimulated in the brain. Because if dopamine is constantly stimulated in the brain, wouldn't the brain be so excited that it breaks down? So, in order to balance the stimulus, the brain will automatically make a balance. This is how dopamine works. After dopamine is released, it will pass through a gap to dopamine receptors entering neurons, completing this process. Corresponding signal transmission will occur, such as producing reactions such as pleasure. After completing the signal transmission, dopamine is released by dopamine transporter proteins, recycling as a mechanism for balancing dopamine levels. For example, when you eat delicious food, dopamine is released in large amounts, making you feel happy. When it's over, dopamine will automatically return to normal levels and then your mood will return to normal. But when a person deliberately pursues the release of dopamine, for example, eating sweets all the time, being addicted to games, and abusing drugs, at this time, dopamine will be continuously secreted in large amounts beyond normal levels. However, the body once again strives for balance, then another mechanism will be activated. Just reduce the number of dopamine receptors, making dopamine less sensitive. That is to say, the tolerance of stimulation is improved. In fact, this situation is often found in life. When you keep repeating something you like, the first time will be very pleasant and happy. Slowly, as you do it more and more times, your tolerance for this will also increase. Finally, you need more stimulation to feel satisfied and happy. Those addicted won't give up because they have to repeat it so many times. Here's the whole point of why addicts can't escape their addiction. When dopamine is no longer sensitive, when tolerance becomes high, in other words, as the saying goes, the appetite has been developed. This means that addicts start to have difficulty feeling happy. They even start to feel bad, uncomfortable, and depressed. To escape this discomfort, they need more stimulation. This leads to a vicious cycle. To become an addict, just not doing these behaviors will make you feel uncomfortable and even physically unwell, like headaches and nausea. This is the so-called withdrawal phenomenon. Eventually, the addictive behavior no longer provides pleasure. Instead, it's used to try to avoid the uncomfortable psychological and physical symptoms caused by withdrawal. The addictive behavior becomes a dependence and a compulsive need. In this stage, the prefrontal cortex, which is responsible for decision-making and judgment, is affected by large amounts of dopamine. It's disguised because of the feeling of pleasure and joy and loses the ability to judge good from bad. Some people say that dopamine is the happy molecule. In fact, dopamine is not exactly the same as the happy molecule. Dopamine is associated with pleasant emotions, but the presence of dopamine alone does not make people happy. More appropriately, dopamine is a substance that makes us want. It motivates us to make choices that will get us more rewards. Many studies have found that before getting stimulated, dopamine is already activated. For example, when delicious food comes to you, not waiting for you to eat, dopamine begins to be released. It gives you the desire you want. When the brain's reward system remembers this behavior, every time you start to come into contact with this behavior or thing, the brain releases dopamine in advance. This can also be explained that before you think about or are about to be exposed to a stimulus, you're already starting to feel excited. However, the addict will constantly crave and look forward to this feeling. Then it's back to the hell of abuse and intoxication. Sugar addicts eat more high-sugar foods. Game addicts play more exciting games. Sex addicts seek out more sexual opportunities. Cell phone addicts will keep reading new information without taking their hands off their phone. Drug addicts will continue to pursue the excitement brought by drugs. This is the whole process of addiction. Behind the addiction, in fact, it can be said from another perspective. Deep inside us lives a luminous body, that's our mind. There are many unknown substances floating around our minds. These unknown substances are both good and bad. Hiding is one of the bad things. Is like a little devil. It won't threaten your sanity at all in the first place. But when one day you start to do something hidden, like playing games, gambling, taking drugs, masturbating, etc., the little devil will continue to grow. Because concealment is their nourishment. Playing games will raise game demons. Gambling will breed gambling demons, and so on. When you continue to do the corresponding behavior, the little devil will slowly turn into a big devil. And these unknown substances are still small. When we're young, we all have our little devils, habits or behaviors that don't have much power over us. But when we keep feeding these little devils, they grow into big devils. They start to trick us into thinking that we need them. The weaker we are, the stronger they become, and the easier it is for them to control us. One day, your mind might say, I don't want to do this anymore. But by then, the big devil has already grown strong. It makes you feel uncomfortable, bad, and in pain. It forces your mind to continue the behavior. Some people's big devils even grow into demon kings, leading to addiction. The mind begins to lose the ability to control the body, and the body becomes dominated by the devil. This is the terrible way addiction grows. According to the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, diagnostic criteria for substance addiction have been described. Gambling is included in this list under behavioral addiction. However, more and more studies have found that behavioral and substance addiction have many similarities in symptoms. Activities such as playing games, using social media, shopping, etc. If you're addicted, your actions and reactions can be very similar to substance addiction. The DSM 5th edition shares diagnostic criteria for substance addiction. You can use it as a reference. If you meet 2 to 3 items, you have mild addiction. If you meet 4 to 5 items, you have moderate addiction. If you meet 6 items or more, you have severe addiction. Everyone just needs to replace the substance with behaviors or things that you may be addicted to. You can roughly determine whether you are addicted. But remember, this is only for preliminary reference and not an absolute diagnostic criterion. So, if it turns out you have an addiction problem, what can you do? One of the biggest causes of addiction is escaping the uncomfortable feeling. According to most addicts, they use addictive substances or behaviors to temporarily forget themselves, to become someone else for a short time, to escape from discomfort. Engaging in addictive behavior or substances will give people a comfortable moment. But don't forget, that's only temporary. It will definitely lead to more painful consequences in the long run. Rather than gain temporary comfort, it's better to strive for long-term happiness. Here are 3 simple points to share. Maybe they'll help you learn to manage your own devils. Firstly, it's important to identify the root problem. Abruptly stopping addictive substances or behaviors is often impossible. What we need to do is to uncover the inner motivation of the behavior. For instance, some people are addicted to playing games, but the fundamental reason is that they enjoy the feeling of connecting with friends. They actually crave social connection, not the game itself. Or some people are addicted to work or shopping, but upon deeper exploration, it's not that they love the job or want the goods. They're trying to fill an inner void and divert their attention. Once we understand the root cause, we can redirect or replace it with other healthy activities that have the same effect. But it should be noted that if you're addicted, it's usually difficult to switch immediately because dopamine tolerance will be very high after addiction. For example, if you're addicted to your mobile phone, it would be difficult to immediately ask you to study instead because the dopamine secreted by studying is not as potent as that from mobile phones. So you won't feel happy while studying. You have to wait until dopamine drops back to equilibrium. Learning will then bring you pleasure. One specific method is to refrain from touching your phone or engaging in addictive behaviors in the morning. Usually, after a night's rest, dopamine levels will most likely return to a balanced level naturally. In the morning, human willpower is usually the highest and is also suitable for completing more complex tasks. If you engage in addictive behavior early in the morning, dopamine tolerance will immediately increase. No matter what you do the rest of the day, you won't feel happy and can't even handle things well. So remember, when you wake up in the morning, refrain from engaging in addictive behaviors. Secondly, do something painful. In fact, the human body is very mysterious. After we produce too much dopamine, the body keeps us from getting too high and will automatically regulate dopamine receptors to make us less happy. In fact, the opposite is also true. When people are experiencing pain, the body also releases some hormones to maintain balance, such as releasing endorphins. Endorphins, as the name suggests, are anesthetics in the brain. They have pain-increasing and pain-reducing effects and will also bring you a pleasant feeling. Everything in the world is balanced between 2 poles. For example, when you are in a happy mood, there are times when you are depressed. After bad things happen, good things will naturally happen to you. This is the law of the universe that inevitably creates and restrains each other. We can take advantage of this, experience pain first, then be happy again. Experience pain. I'm not telling you to hit yourself or hurt yourself or anything like that. There are healthy but painful activities we can do. For example, training or exercise of a certain intensity, taking cold showers, solving puzzles, and more. Bitter first and then sweet. Life can't just mean pleasure. The more indulgent you are, the more painful it will be. And when the pain is done, you tend to get greater happiness. Empathize with all the pain and sorrow. Depression is temporary. Learn to live with it rather than masking it with addictive behaviors or substances. After the pain is over, you will usher in greater happiness. Thirdly, learn to be grateful. Gratitude may sound like a religious statement, but it's a powerful tool in overcoming addiction. But in reality, a lot of studies have started to uncover the scientific nature of gratitude. Surprisingly, gratitude also releases dopamine, just like eating delicious food. When we're grateful, our reward system is activated, releasing dopamine and making us feel happy. The reason for this is that gratitude can foster closer connections between people. In human existence, sociality is a crucial factor for survival. Gratitude also stimulates serotonin, which is well known for improving positive emotions. Serotonin can be greatly beneficial in many pathologies, such as improving anxiety, curing depression, and improving sleep quality. There are experimental research results to back this up. In general, gratitude makes it easier for us to appreciate things, generate positive thoughts, and increase life satisfaction. And when life satisfaction increases, it's not easy to fall into the short-term happiness brought by addiction. Even if you're dealing with minor things, having a grateful heart will definitely yield unexpected results. The above 3 points might seem like very common things, but if you really put them into practice, you'll find that your life will undergo incredible changes. Wait, don't rush off just yet. There are 2 videos next to this one that you might also like. Feel free to click in and take a look. If you think this video is good, remember to leave a like before you leave. You can also share these interesting pieces of knowledge with your family and friends. Press the subscribe bell and I'll notify you when there are new videos. This is Dark Psychology World Channel. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video.